Hello, Abnormal Family. I wanted to do a double drop today for you guys, give you a little something special. This one will be 30 minutes after the first drop at 5 p.m., but I hope you will enjoy this one. I think it's going to be a good one. This happens in Oklahoma, Brown Springs, Oklahoma, down in the area where DDoS actually investigates. And we may have to have him on a future show and pick his brain a little bit about Brown Springs, as I've read only a little bit, but I plan on brushing up on it. Brown Springs, Oklahoma fishing trip is what this one is called. We would all go every year for an all-night trip in August. I would meet up with Scott and load my fishing gear in his truck and help him load his so we could get started sooner. I looked forward to this trip every year. It was a way for us to decompress from a long week of work. Scott's son David was starting his senior year and was eager to get done with school. At this time, I was only 28 years old, and I told him, enjoy life now, because adulting sucks. Laughing while I said it, Scott and I had known each other for over 10 years at this point, and we had worked together for the same amount of time. Our friendship was more like a brotherhood and always had each other's back and treated each other like family. As we started the drive to our favorite spot to fish, I mentioned to Scott we needed to stop and buy more bait. He shook his head in irritation and asked, "What's wrong?" Scott replied. Froze up. He says, "I just want to sit down by the water sooner than later. I thought you bought bait already." I felt bad, but what can I say? I'm only human. We stopped at a small gas station in Martinsville and got some worms and other miscellaneous stuff to use as bait. We loaded up everything and made it on our way. Listening to some good 80s music, all three of us were excited to catch some fish. From the gas station to the reservoir was about 30 minutes, but it felt like a lifetime. As we pulled into the grass, there was a sign that said, "Closed due to animal attack." The trail we had to walk down to get to the water was covered in shadow because the sun started to set. But we didn't care about that or the sign. Both Scott and I carry a firearm when we're not at work, so we got out our gear and made our way down the trail with no hassle because we were eager to start fishing. As we got set up, all three of us were talking smack on who would catch the most fish. David was the first to put a line in the water and proclaim, "He will outfish us." Both Scott and I scuffed and put lines in the water too. After a few hours, we were all having fun, talking about random things like cars, girls, and work. David stood up and told us he would be right back. He had to go use the restroom. I told him, "Take a flashlight, it's too dark and you can get lost." David took a light and disappeared in the darkness. Around the same time, we started to hear a knocking in the distance. Knock, knock, knock. This put the chills down my spine, but then the thought crossed my mind that it was David fooling around. As David came back, Scott asked him, "Hey, could you not act like an idiot out here in the middle of nowhere?" David replied, "First, what are you talking about? Second, who's making that knocking noise?" Then the knocking noise started again. Knock, knock, knock. I stood up and grabbed the flashlight from David and pointed in the direction of the sound. Looking in the direction of the sound, but I didn't see anything. Then suddenly, something large landed very close to where we were sitting. I pointed the flashlight toward where we thought it landed, and the light traveled across the grass until it seen a large rock that was at least 10 pounds or more. Scott was starting to worry that maybe someone was messing with us, but David told him this doesn't seem like something a person would do. David asked, "Could this be a bear?" With some fear in his voice and eyes, I replied, "No, bears don't knock or throw rocks." I was starting to worry myself, so I got my firearm out of its holster, ready to fire if needed. The knocking and rock throwing stopped for a while, so we thought maybe it was over. I looked at my phone to see that it was almost 3 o'clock in the morning, but it didn't feel like it. Knock, knock echoed across the woods, and the most disturbing sound came after the only way to describe it would be a mix between a howl and a yell. This noise was way too close for comfort and gave me goosebumps. I asked the guys if they were ready to leave, and both said yes. So we started to pack up, and then another rock was thrown and it hit the ground next to us. I could have peed my pants right then. Scott grabbed the flashlight and pointed it toward the sounds again, and there was about 30 to 40 yards away between the trees was a tall, dark shadow. This shadow was almost 7 feet off the ground, with reddish yellow eyes. David asked instantly, "Can we leave, please?" He was scared beyond scared at this point. Scott looked at me, and we both knew it wasn't a person or a bear. The knocking and rock throwing continued. We were walking pretty fast down the trail, which was parallel to the water's edge. Almost 100 yards to go before getting to the truck, and the kerplunk, followed by a splash right next to where we were. This sounded like the water was out there and threw a boulder instead of a rock. All three of us stopped in our tracks and looked around to see if anything was getting closer. Heavy footsteps were moving, and sounded like whatever it was making them was in a hurry. Even with the flashlights, we could barely see anything. David stated, saying, "Do you think this is why this is said this area is closed?" No one replied. We just kept walking. We heard glass break ahead of us, which only meant that something was at the truck. Our hearts were beating so fast at this point we were acting on pure adrenaline. Me and Scott both had our guns out and we were ready to use them if needed. We kept hearing more and more noises. Once one noise heard another loud screech and something was dying. I asked Scott, "Does the remote start work from here?" Scott reached to his pocket to get his keys as he said, That's when we all got a whiff of the foulest smell. It was a cross between rotten trees and wet dog. To me, that felt like whatever it was should be very close. So close at the point I heard low growls just ahead of us. A loud crash and a knock right in front of us sounded like something slammed on a tree against another. We finally made it to the truck and saw all 4 windows had been smashed, and the screeching noise we realized at the moment. I opened the tailgate to see what used to be a raccoon head smashed, back broken, and stomach tore open. This was gruesome to see, and we were in panic mode. We all piled in the truck, and Scott started it, and as the lights from the truck came on, it illuminated the woods in front of us, and there was a blackish brown, over 7 foot tall. If I didn't see it with my own 2 eyes, I would have never believed it. It was real, and it was standing right here in Oklahoma. Bigfoot was standing about 15 yards in front of the truck with a huge rock in its hand. It had a very angry look on its face. This Bigfoot, was showing no signs of backing down. Scott started to back up slowly at first, but then it started to come toward us. "Dad, go faster," screamed David. So Scott put his foot on the floor, and we got out of there. Then there was a loud bang that caused the back of the truck to move a little, but he kept driving. We drove the whole way home, not saying a word, with our eyes wide open. I don't think we even blinked at all. We pulled into the driveway of Scott's house, and the floodlight over his garage came on. We stepped out and looked at the truck closer. There were a lot of dents, scratches, plus the broken windows. We looked in the tailgate, and there was a huge rock in the back. So the loud bang had to be the thing throwing it at us. Scott said, "Was that what I think it was?" I replied, "I think so, David." At this point, I wasn't sure what we had seen, or I wasn't saying anything. I think maybe I was in shock. Scott tried to tell his wife what happened, but she didn't believe him. She thought we had been drinking. And she said, "I told you guys, don't go down there and fish at Brown Springs in the dark. It's bad enough in the daylight." If you all know Oklahoma, you know Brown Springs is a bad place to be, daylight or dark. So what do you guys think about Brown Springs, Oklahoma? DDoS, I look forward to your comment on this also. I know you know a lot about Brown Springs, and that's your stomping ground, and I've heard it's a pretty rough place down there for Bigfoot and other activities, so I don't know. We're going to have to get DDoS on the show and pick his brain and find out what he knows about Brown Springs, and maybe I can get everything together and my vehicle and everything, and we can make a trip down there and explore it with DDoS. I think that would be a great day. What do you guys think? Keep your head on a swivel, guys. Smash that like button. That's very important. We got to get those likes up so we can push that algorithm. So smash that like button. That way you're not something's dinner. If you don't smash the like button, something's probably going to eat you. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one.